Hi everyone, my name is Katrina. I am currently a fourth year social work student at Ryerson University. I am in the Bachelor of Social Work program, and right now I'm completing my placement practicum with the organization For a Safer Space. So today I want to talk about how to cope with grief, and I will also be teaching a skill a little bit later. So this is a brief overview of what this presentation will talk about. So we'll talk about the what is grief, definition and causes. We'll look at the symptoms and stages of grief. And then the skill that I'll be teaching near the end is the circle of control. So I'll be talking about how it works and why it's beneficial. Okay, so starting with what is grief. Grief is a natural response to loss. There's many causes of grief. I've only listed a couple, but there are many more. Examples include a divorce or a breakup, loss of employment or financial stability, death of a loved one, and loss of a friendship. Grief is subjective. Not everybody grieves the same or grieves over the same things. So it's really important that just because one person might be grieving over a specific situation, it doesn't mean that anybody who enters that situation will also be dealing with grief. So the symptoms of grief, I've broken it down into two categories. There's the emotional symptoms and physical symptoms. So under emotional symptoms, I have shock, sadness, guilt, anger, and fear. Under physical symptoms, it can include nausea, fatigue, weight changes, whether that's weight gain or weight loss, aches and pains, and insomnia. And again, there are definitely more symptoms, but these are just a general overview of what people might be experiencing. So now we're going to go over the 5 stages of grief. The first one is denial. So this is when people are experiencing grief, maybe in denial of what has happened and not truly believe or understand what has happened. Then they move on to anger. So after processing what has happened, individuals may look for someone or something to blame for what has happened. Next, we go into the bargaining stage, which is the process of trying to strike up a deal or trying to get back what was lost. So for an example, some people might say, please bring back something. I promise I will do this. And so that's just a process of if you give me back what I've lost, I promise I will do this. And that's essentially what the bargaining stage looks like. The next stage is depression. So at this stage, the individual has reached a point of emotional exhaustion where they may feel too depressed by what has happened to go about their daily routine. And the last stage is acceptance. So the point at which an individual has fully understood and accepted what has happened and are able to move on and be at peace. So now we're moving on to the skill that I'm going to be teaching, which is the circle of control. And so I have a diagram here for you to reference. So we'll start at the most outer circle. So that is the circle of concern. And what's in here is essentially factors that are of an immediate concern but are outside of your control. So for an example, the weather, past decisions, or traffic. These are things that could be a concern to you, but you have no control over whatsoever. Next, we move on to the circle of influence. So these are factors you don't have direct control over, but you can have an impact on. So for an example, your productivity at work or other people's actions. You can't, for an example, with other people's actions, you can't control what they do, but you can influence what they do through yourself. And now you have your most inner circle, which is the circle of control. So these are factors that you have immediate control over. So for an example, your own thoughts, your own words, and your own actions. You control what you say, you control what you do, and that would fall into the circle of control. So how it works is you're going to take a blank diagram. You can use the one I did before, you can draw it out for yourself. And what we're going to do is, we're going to start with the most outer circle. So number 1, we're going to start with the circle of concern. What you're going to do is write down all of the problems and issues that are of a concern to you on a sticky note and place them in the circle of concern. Now, we're going to jump a little bit ahead, but we're going to move to the circle of control. So take a look at your list of concerns and the items that you put there, and look at things that you could control the outcome of, and start to move them into your circle of control. So you want to take stuff from your circle of concern and move them into the circle of control. So what are things that you can do right now that can change the outcome of that? Now, looking at what's still in your circle of concern, it may cause a little bit of anxiety or stress for some, but just remember that we still have that middle circle. So this is your circle of influence. Take a look at what you still have in your circle of concern. What are things that you can do or change that might influence this outcome? Remember, you might not be able to change it or have direct control, but what are little things that you can do that might have an impact? What are things that you can change about yourself, about those around you, that may change that outcome? And in doing so, you're taking control over, what you can do with your situation. So why is the circle of control useful? For me, I find that it allows individuals to visually see what they're going through, and being able to see it is so important instead of carrying everything inside and not getting it out. It also empowers individuals to look at their situations and see what changes they can make on their own to find solutions to their problems. It helps individuals who feel helpless or have a lot of anxiety around certain things to work through their problems. It also takes individuals from a place where they feel no control to a place where they are in control. So I challenge you to try the circle of control, even if it's just one pressing concern, and work through that and see if there's anything that you can do right now that'll control and change that, but if there's anything you can do to also influence it. And I think that by working through that, it will help ease a little bit of the stress around this. And I know this presentation was focused on how to cope with grief, but this can be used in any situation. And that's the beauty of this skill. You can use it for school, for work. Definitely you can use it when you're dealing with grief because there's so many things that come with that. But this skill is so important and it can really help you, again, visualize and see what you're going through, but help you work through that. Okay, so thank you for listening. Bye, everyone.